All right, well, that is 7 o'clock. So, welcome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth in our series of exclusive online talks for the Kent Archaeological Society. Hard to believe it's been 4 months already. It's flown by, but yeah, welcome. It's getting chilly out there, and the spooky season is upon us. And all those lovely autumnal orange and browns are covering the country like a fiery blanket. And it's a perfect time to get cozy and soak up the history and heritage of the county of Kent, which is what, and the surroundings, which is what we hope to do. So hopefully tonight we'll go without any technical hiccups and we'll run smoothly. Do please bear with us if there are any issues. Now, Jacob has taken annual leave from his annual leave to be on hand to fix any issues tonight. So we're in debt to him even more than usual. Just quickly want to say, if you're not a member, do think about joining us. It works out only about £3.30 a month. For that, you'll receive a copy of our yearly journal, Archaeologia Cantiana, full of the most current historical and archaeological research in the county. You'll also receive our biannual newsletters, exclusive access to our collections, conferences and selected events, opportunities to get involved in excavations and research projects, and you will help to continue to allow us putting on content such as these online talks, outreach at schools, community groups, and seminars, which we hope is really bringing the benefits of history and heritage to everyone. Check the website for details on how to become a member. So, first up, housekeeping. The talk will last around about an hour, after which we'll have time for questions if there are any. Please keep yourselves on mute with your cameras off throughout so we can hear the speaker clearly. During the Q&A, you can either use the raise hand feature and we will unmute you when it's your turn to ask your question. Or if you prefer, you can type your question in the chat box and we will read it out for you. I hope it goes without saying, but please be courteous and polite to our speaker and to each other. We will be recording the session and it may be posted to our video channels in the future, but no personal data will be shared. And if you ask a question but would prefer it not to be published, then just send us an email and we will make sure it is not included. So, on to our speaker. Tad is the CEO of Maidstone Community Support Centre, supporting not-for-profit organisations to support communities in Kent. This is also the home of the Society, where we have not only our offices, but many of our collections and research projects are conducted. So it's Tad's job to oversee, manage, support, and develop the functions and associated projects of the centre. In past roles, Tad has been the Senior Community Development Officer at Rethink, working to ensure equality in access to mental health services across Kent and Medway, a lead district officer at Mencap, and a self-employed roofing contractor, amongst other things. He is the chairman on the board of trustees for Fusion Healthy Living Centre, a centre offering various health and wellbeing services and social support across Maidstone. He has several qualifications in social care training, leadership and management, mechanical and electrical engineering, and most relevant to us tonight, qualifications as a professional scuba diving instructor. His talents and skills extend further, and it's in his leisure pursuits where his passion truly lies. Tad has an office full of brilliant photographs showing him looking incredibly cool on various motorbiking adventures and paragliding insanities, which is probably all I can say. He's been diving for many years on the southern shores of Britain and much further afield. If you want to find out more, you can find his diving group, Meridian Divers, who are based in the southeast, and numerous expedition videos online. I think we've put a link actually in the chat there to some of his videos. But it's meridiandivers.blogspot.com, or you can simply search Tad's name on YouTube and I can attest it will come up with a whole host of amazing videos. So, underwater adventurer, born to be wild, human eagle, adrenaline junkie, carer for his community, and a genuinely lovely bloke. I'm really pleased to welcome Tad and excited to hear all about the expedition to the SS T.R. Thompson, which I must say that this was something that we got wrong. They didn't discover the wreck, but they adopted it and dived on it, and you will about to hear the incredible story which came from it. So I'm going to call this our first Tad Talk, and Tad, it is over to you, buddy.
Okay, Right, the crikey. Thank you, Craig. Sound like James Bond almost, but thank you. Before I put the slides up for the presentation, I feel a bit of a fraud because the dive and the shipwreck, what we're going to be talking about tonight, was actually in Sussex. But as you probably all know, there's many shipwrecks around the coast of England. We're the coast of Britain. We're in Ireland, obviously, and there's many shipwrecks off of the coast of Kent as well. But this was more about the project and you know, a group of guys that were just divers, love diving, and a bit of a journey on this particular shipwreck, which we had dived before, but we decided to dive deeper, so to speak, into its history and its crew. So yeah, so it's not a Kent wreck, so I do apologise. I know this is the Kent Archaeological Society, but this was a Sussex wreck. And this talk really came about from Craig, Andy, and the rest of the KES team in the building, just sort of chatting and sharing, you know, what I like to do. And I remember showing Craig and Andy, and I think probably Richard as well, the videos of the wreck, which we're going to talk about. And Craig asked if I would do a talk, and so here I am. And so bear with me, it's been quite a few years since I've done this, and actually the last time I did it, it was live. In fact, in previous times it was live. So I'm quite a newbie to online stuff, so I'm probably going to be a little bit clunky, so I apologize for that. And some of the video quality, this was a few years ago now, may not be brilliant because it was shot in standard definition with a really large camera. Nowadays, everything's done with an Ultra HD GoPro, which you can put in your pocket. So I do apologise perhaps for the quality of the videos. But so I shall proceed with the slides, if I can get them up. Okay. Okay, slideshow from beginning. Okay, so this is we're a group of divers, Meridian Divers. We love to dive shipwrecks, and the particular shipwreck we're going to talk about in a bit is the SS T.R. Thompson and the NAS, which is the Nautical Archaeological Society Adopt a Wreck project. So a bit about my background, as Craig says, I do like things that could potentially kill me. Diving has always been a big love of mine. As a kid in the 60s, and you haven't shown my age now, but I started watching Jacques Cousteau on the TV, and just instantly, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to become a diver. I spent many hours in the bath with my face underwater with a little round mask, which was bought from a toy shop, with a ping pong ball in a snorkel that stuck out the top, which was highly dangerous. But just being under the water, that's all I wanted to do. And so I wanted to be a diver, and actually I wanted to be an archaeologist, but I wasn't very academic at school, so archaeology wasn't going to be the thing that I ended up doing. Back in those days, you couldn't learn to dive until you were 18. And so I had to wait till I was 18, and I joined the Hastings Sub-Aqua Association, their club, and learned to dive in a pool. And the world opened up to me. It was great, and I just absolutely loved being underwater, and being able to breathe underwater was just incredible.
I'm very sorry, Tad, to interrupt. We can't see your slides. Have you started?
Oh, yet? So I haven't shared the screen. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to make you host again and then share the screen for us. Thank you.
Let me come out of that sec. Right. Hang on a sec.
You might need to open it full screen. That's the one. Thank you very much. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay. So that's that, and so I learned to dive when I was 18. I did have a few years out of it, got into other things, had to work. But back in the late 80s, I got back into diving. I retrained as a paddy diver. They say it's pay as you dive, but I then became an instructor a few years later, and then developed a passion for shipwrecks. So, which led me on to where we are now. So a few years ago in 2000, late 2000, a group of divers from New Haven, we're all instructors or dive masters with New Haven Scuba Centre. We wanted to do a project. So we formed a project group, and we called ourselves Meridian Divers. And we wanted to see what was off our coast. And, you know, we love diving shipwrecks. And I can tell you a bit about the equipment we use. I can show you a film about a shipwreck in a minute. And also we're going to talk about the T.R. Thompson Dr. Wreck project. So, as I said, Meridian Divers was primarily set up for the Dr. Wreck scheme, which moves on to that. So there are approximately 400 to 500 shipwrecks off the Sussex coast, and probably many more off the Kent coast. Wrecks range from a wide period of time. There are iron, wooden-built vessels. There's obviously other wrecks like aircraft, and probably many more yet still to be discovered or identified. I mean, I was part of Tunbridge Wells BZAC a few years ago, and we were diving wrecks which had either been misnamed or unknown, and we made it a passion of ours to actually identify try and find clues to find out what the actual identity of those ships were, or actually name a ship which hadn't been named or wrongly named. This slide here shows you just a part of the Sussex coast, and all those little green boxes and yellow boxes are all wrecks, and this is just from Newhaven to probably Hastings. So you can see there's at least 500 off the Sussex coast that we know about, and there's probably many more. And just in comparison, sorry, I'm not quite sure. There should be another slide there. Craig, can I just come out of that? See that?
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know why it was doing that, but it showed the wrong slide. So this slide here, I just talked about, this is some of the wrecks off of the East Kent coast here. And some of those are well known, and some of those on the Goodwin Sands. To be honest, I've not dived off the Kent coast. I've dived a lot of places around the UK, but I've never dived off the Kent coast in the past. But as you can see there, there's hundreds of shipwrecks in just this part of the coast. And I should imagine there's probably more wrecks off the Kent coast than there are off the Sussex coast. So why do we dive shipwrecks? I remember the first time I ever saw my first wreck, and it was actually on my first dive ever, which was in a homemade wetsuit. It was off a little rib off of Hastings, a harness with a tank on the back, and it was pitch black. So I wouldn't say I actually saw the shipwreck, I felt it. It was an old steamship, which was sitting on the bottom, about 7 miles off of Hastings. I was terrified. As I say, it was pitch black. I was holding to rope, a diver going around and laid a rope around because we were all on our first dive. And it was terrifying, but I just knew I was hooked. Even though it was terrifying, I knew I was hooked. It's the thing I always wanted to do. Obviously, with all ships and all shipwrecks, there's a story. And that can be a fascinating story. And 9 times out of 10, it's a tragic story, because those wrecks obviously are people's graves as well. And I really do feel privileged to see that part of our history that relatively few people do get to see. I mean, people see lots of TV programs now that are about diving and shipwrecks, but to actually go out and do it for real, it is amazing. And I do feel privileged to be able to do that, and to be able to have done it in the past. And I feel privileged because I've dived in many places in the world, and seen the nice fish life, but also seen some really nice, interesting shipwrecks. Just to digress slightly, there's a shipwreck in Egypt in the Red Sea called the Thistleborn, which was sank in the Second World War by a German bomber. And it's probably, in the diving world, it's probably one of the most well-known shipwrecks. But this shipwreck is a time capsule as well. It's full of motorbikes, old trucks, guns, rifles, aircraft parts. And strangely enough, to be supplied to the desert, loads of Wellington boots as well. So, and that's just an amazing dive. And obviously the visibility is really good in the Red Sea. But I am very privileged to have experienced what I've experienced. We want to, you know, when I go diving, and it's not as often now as I used to. In fact, you know, it's been a few years since I've dived a shipwreck, or I got back into diving last year because of work and other things take time. I started taking a camera with me and started filming, and I've got a love of that. So I used to do bits of film with an old standard definition camcorder in a massive, great big housing. And actually the BBC used to use a couple of my shots a few times, ask if there's anything they could use when they were doing a shipwreck or related news article. And as divers, I think we've got a responsibility. So divers in the past have had a bad press. You know, wrecks have been things have been taken off wrecks, and I know in the last few years somebody was charged for taking lots of old cannons and things and kept them in a shed. We're not about that. We're about actually finding out the history of the ship, respecting that wreck, respecting the people that perhaps died on that wreck as well. To us, that's really important, and it's always been important to me. The other thing with shipwrecks is they have a second life. Once they've sank to the bottom, they start attracting life. If you can imagine a desert, and that's what the seabed is like, and especially off the Sussex coast, it's flat, muddy. There are the odd rocky reefs, but on the whole, it's flat and quite muddy. You get a shipwreck, and it is actually teeming with life, and they're beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to see, and you hopefully, if the video works okay in a bit, you'll see that. And it is a testament to the sailors and the people that once walked their decks. The sort of shipwrecks we dive, a lot of them are war casualties, and others are in accidents. There's a really beautiful passenger ship off of Sussex called the Oceana, and it's stunning. It's just beautiful. You can still see the lines of it. It's a beautiful shipwreck. People did die on it, but it was carrying passengers. It was rammed by accident, and when people evacuated the ship, one of the lifeboats was hit by a piece of falling wreckage, and the guys in that, which were crew in that lifeboat, died. So the equipment we use: regulators, exposure suits. I use a dry suit. The English Channel, even in the middle of summer, can be quite chilly, and I've always preferred to use a dry suit. So basically, a dry suit is, if I can get this out, that's the dry suit. Okay, so that basically keeps water out, and a semi-dry will let a small amount of water in. They call it a wetsuit, but I've always preferred to use a dry suit, which presents a different set of issues, because sometimes if you're not weighted properly, the air gets in your feet, and you can be upside down, and you've got to be a bit careful. So dry suit is a bit more technical, but I think a lot of the people that dive in the UK now use dry suits. These are the regulators. They're the things you put in your mouth and breathe from, and you have them serviced every year. That is basically that keeps you alive. This picture here are our cylinders. Now, often you hear people say, "Oh, you breathe oxygen." We don't. We breathe compressed air, or we breathe mixed gas. So that can be a mixture of we call nitrox. So it's got an element of more oxygen in it than normal air, and we use that to give you slightly longer underwater and help prevent decompression sickness, or the bends as they call it. Masks and helmets. I think everybody probably knows what a diving mask looks like. I do have a full face mask as well, which I find difficult because I have trouble equalizing sometimes. So when you dive, the pressure builds and you have to equalize your ears. Sometimes, like when you go up into an aircraft, you have to equalize. It's exactly the same when you dive, because the pressure pushes on your ears. So you have to make sure that you equalize and you don't burst your eardrums. And some people use helmets, especially if you're going inside a wreck, you're penetrating a wreck, or if you're cave diving, it's probably best to wear a helmet, because you can bash your head quite badly. And obviously cameras. Nowadays, as I said earlier on, digital cameras have really taken over, and even for video cameras, it's GoPros is one of the best things, because they're so small and you can literally put it in your pocket. The camera I used was quite a large, probably about a foot long, probably about 8 inches wide, and you put a camcorder inside it, and it was had big lead weights on the bottom of it to make it so it wasn't buoyant, and it was quite heavy to carry around. It was all right in the water, but underneath the water, it was fine, but it was quite bulky. And now there's GoPros, which seems to have taken over. So the SS T.R. Thompson project and the Meridian Divers adopt a wreck. So I'm going to tell you about the NAS. So the NAS is the Nautical Archaeological Society. Quite a few years ago, in the 80s, I decided that I was never going to be an archaeologist, as I said earlier on. I was an academic, but the opportunity came up to do a basic underwater archaeology course, which was all done in a pool, so it wasn't real life, but it was still showed you the challenges. So we learned to set datums underwater and measure things underwater and draw things underwater. And I did the part 1 and part 2 course, which was great. This is a bit of blurb about the Adopt a Wreck scheme, which was originally devised in 2000 with funding from the Heritage Lottery Fund. And the scheme serves as a way of encouraging the public to actively record the sites they're visiting. And everyone who's adopted the site is encouraged to submit their work for the annual Adopt a Wreck award. And it doesn't have to be a shipwreck. It can be a structure. It can be an aircraft. It can be I think somebody found off the coast down west somewhere remains of an old village. So it doesn't have to be a shipwreck to be classed as for the Adopt a Wreck scheme. But as a group of divers, we decided this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to identify, adopt a wreck and see where it took us. So we decided on a well-dived wreck called the SS T.R. Thompson, which is a wreck about 12 miles off of the New Haven coast. Nothing's particularly special about that wreck, except we like diving it. And it was sank in the First World War, and we just wanted to find out more of it. So we started having, as a group, got together and started discussing what we wanted to do. And the guy in the beard with the blue polo shirt on is a guy called Ian Barfoot, and he was from the NAS, and he came down and talked to us and guided us on our project. So we started planning what we wanted to do, and Meridian Divers was formed. So there's another bit of blurb about this scheme. And we looked at this and we thought this is something we really want to do. And we're not scientists, we're amateur divers, we're sport divers. We're not professional divers, although I'm classed, or I was classed as a professional instructor, which meant I had to have health and safety assessments every year, and HSE medical every year. So in theory, I was classed as a commercial diver, but I never got paid for what I was doing. I did it because I wanted to teach people to dive and share the sort of things that I love doing. So that's the more blurb about the Adopt a Wreck scheme. So we set up our project, which was the Meridian T.R. Thompson project, and we thought it'd be around 2 years, and it was going to be conducted by us volunteers, Meridian Divers. And our aim was to find out and record the historical and factual information through land-based research, underwater investigation of the wreck site. As I said, it's a well-known wreck. We've dived it loads of times, but it's a beautiful wreck too. And we felt this would be a really, really good project to do, this wreck in particular. We then decided what we was going to do. So we'd put together a record of the wreck's history, its present day conditions, and we're going to monitor it. We're going to use that by including video and photographs. And we were going to design a website where we'd actually put it onto a blog site. That was easier for us to do, and that would be accessible for anybody who was interested in the project. As I said, the project would take around 2 years and culminating in a final report using everything we'd found out. And then we were going to enter it into the NAS Adopt a Wreck award scheme. So a photographic survey of the wreck. We were going to map the wreck. We're going to video survey the wreck. We're going to do lots of archive research. We're going to publicise a project with TV, radio and press. There'll be more about that in a bit. And we were going to produce the detailed publication, video, DVD. But some of those things didn't actually happen. We didn't produce a DVD, although we produced videos which were on YouTube. We certainly publicised the project with TV, radio, and press, and we did a lot of research. And if you go to the blog, you'll see some of that research. And the research took us off in all sorts of different directions, in places we never thought we'd end up in terms of this particular wreck. And the website, as I said, became a blog. We talked to other clubs, we talked to fishermen, we talked to the NAS, and we just used every bit of information we could to make sure that our project was going to be successful. And actually, as I said earlier, promotion of responsible diving. So we were going to go down and we were going to respect the wrecks. We were going to take things off the wreck. We were going to raid a wreck as such. We were just going to treat it with respect. It was somebody's grave. There are things which have been brought up from the wrecks in the past, and all those things have been with this wreck, not from us, but other people, which I should show you pictures in a minute, were declared to the receiver of wreck. So anybody that finds something on a wreck has to declare it to the receiver of wreck, and who will then find out who the owner is, the rightful owner, or what to do with that particular artifact once it's been found and brought to the surface. Just another story, a friend of mine, Jamie Smith, who's from Tunbridge Wells, Bezac, a few years ago, he dived the Oceana, which was the passenger ship I was talking about earlier on. Saw something sticking out the sand at the side of the wreck, and it was a big brass plaque. He pulled it out, and it was a commemoration plaque, which was to commemorate the regiment from Nottingham. I think it was the Sherwood Foresters Regiment, and their families who died in India from disease. And this was going out to India to go on one of the church walls out there. Unfortunately, the ship sank. So Jamie pulled it up, brought it to the surface, cleaned it up, notified receiver of the wreck, and from that we went up to the regimental headquarters for the Sherwood Foresters, and we presented the plaque back to them, and it was great. It's now in their regimental museum, so it was a really good thing to do. Obviously, as I said, the wrecks become full of life, so we identify what particular marine life is on the wreck, how it's growing, and obviously marine life is a good way of looking at how healthy the water is around. One thing of this particular wreck is that in the summer, probably late summer, you get lots of dolphins around there, and one day we came up and we had about 30 bottlenose dolphins who stayed with us for about an hour. It was amazing. You know, you don't expect it in this country, but that was amazing. And obviously we entered the project and the results and data for the NAS award. So the T.R. Thompson, this is the stern view of the T.R. Thompson. It was a merchant seaman. It was carrying iron ore from Algeria back up to Sunderland, and it was torpedoed in 1918. There was a crew of 36, and 33 of those crew died when the ship was sank in the English Channel. That's the port bow view of the ship. For some reason, those ships just look beautiful. I mean, the lines of them are amazing. So it was sunk by torpedo in the early hours of Good Friday, 29th of March, 1918. She was carrying a cargo of iron ore from Beni Suef in Algeria back to Middlesbrough with a crew of 36. 33 men died, 3 survivors picked up by a nearby vessel. It was sunk by U-boat, UB-57. That is purported to be a picture of that particular U-boat. I can't clarify that exactly, but this was in the research we looked at, and this was said to be that particular U-boat. And this Commander Johannes Loos was the U-boat captain. He looks like a teenager, a very, very young man. He was killed later in August 1918, and his body was washed ashore near Flanders. He had a period over that period when the Thompson was sank. I think over about 5 days, he sank about 5 merchant wrecks off the Sussex coast. And this was probably the type of torpedo that sank the Thompson. I'm not sure where that torpedo is, but that was purported the same type of torpedo. The Thompson was built in Sunderland by the Short brothers in 1897. It was a steel screw steamer, one deck, two-mast schooner. The engine builder was John Dickinson of Sunderland, a triple expansion steam engine. And when I show you the videos in a bit, you'll clearly see that. She was owned by the J. Westall line. Its sister ship, I think, is in Tenerife, sank out. So we always wanted to go to Tenerife to dive the sister ship, one of the sister ships. And sorry, I can't remember the name of it now, but we never actually got out there to do that. And where the ship was sank in Tenerife, the sister ship, it's quite difficult to dive because of its location. Cheap at the price, but I'm sure back in 1897, £32,000 was a lot of money. Nowadays, it's next to nothing. And the registered tonnage was 2,261.06 tons. This is one of the engine plates, which somebody in the late 70s brought up from the wreck, and that obviously was declared. I think it was brought up by a diver called Tim Bonetti. I'm pretty sure he was one of the first guys to actually dive the wreck and find stuff on it. The ship's bell, which is always the holy grail for divers, is to find a ship's bell because that clearly identifies any ship bell. But this was found by Bromley Bezak in the early 90s. And two of my colleagues, Andy and Chris, are pictured here with the ship T.R. Thompson's ship's bell. The gunwheel and the rangefinder. The T.R. Thompson was armed in the First World War. It had one gun at the rear of the stern of the ship, and there are pictures you'll see on the video in a bit. And this was the rangefinder and the wheel that raised the gun, and this was donated to the project. And I think these are now still down in New Haven Scuba Centre, the early 90s. This is a picture of the SS Gladys Royal. This was from the Westall line, which is the people that owned the ship. And this is identical and with the same livery as what the Thompson was on, to what the Thompson would look like. So why did we dock the wreck from T.R. Thompson? As I said, it's a wreck we dived many times, and as an instructor, it was a favourite wreck of mine to take down students on their first ever wreck dive. When conditions are good, it is beautiful. The stern of the ship used to be completely intact. The gun was sitting upright. That's full of fish life, and it is a beautiful wreck. And it was one of our favourite wrecks to dive. So we, as a group, we decided this was the wreck we was going to adopt and do our project work on. So some of the resources we have used to research the project are the UK Hydrographic Office, a source of information, Q Records. There was a gentleman I met by chance through the project called Alf Rodenby, who lived up in a place where they make the pork pies, and I can't remember it. It's Midlands somewhere. And I was invited to his house, and he's was a mind of information about ships, British ships, and he gave us loads and loads of information. Obviously, Diver Magazine, Canadian Records, because some of the crew Canadian. Norman Jack, and we're going to talk about Norman a bit more in a minute. The German War Graves Commission, U-boat.net, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, W Mariners UK, and Time and Weir Museum. So there was a lot of resources, and there was more stuff as well which we used. Being a well-known wreck as well, there's lots of stuff out there to read. Other people have dived it and written stuff. We used to dive the wreck up as much as possible, up to 10 times a year. It sits 34 metres to the seabed, and it's approximately 10 to 12 miles south of New Haven. and normally the diving is carried out by diving on a rib or a hard boat. We used to have, as a club, we had our own rib, but sometimes to do the project, a hard boat would be better, but it's expensive. Back then it was £45 per diver to go out onto the wrecks. We started to measure the wreck's features, and we would continue to monitor the wreck over the next few years. I dived it. Last time I actually dived this wreck was about 6-7 years ago, and I was shocked, absolutely shocked by how much it had deteriorated. As I say, when I first dived it back in the early 90s, the stern was pretty much intact, and now it's just crumbled away, and which will happen. It's not because of people damaging it. The metal is deteriorating, the cast iron, the ship was built with rivets, they started to pop, and it's started to collapse. The gun's fallen over to the side. And it's sad, but that's what happens to wrecks in the channel. This was a picture of us measuring one of the spare anchors on the deck. We were using lines, marking off lines, and then measuring the lines when we got back to shore. As I say, we were amateurs. We'd never clue what we were doing. We was making up as we go along, but it worked, and it was good, and we were learning all the time. These are ribs from the side of the ship. The plates have fallen off. Those ribs, last time I dived, are now collapsed to the side. There, and you can see those ribs are originally upright, and now they've collapsed to the side of the wreck. And at the stern, it's actually collapsed over the rudder and the propeller. These were the plans. This is what I got from Alf. He had the plans of these are the only plans in existence that we could find of the Thompson. And what we did is we tried to sort of put features on from photographs. So that's the stern area. You can just about see the rudder. The ship's railings, and later on they became a bit more poignant to us when we did a particular dive on that wreck. But this also shows the position of where they are on the plans. This is one of the anchors. The bow of the ship is completely flat. For some reason, the ship is completely flattened on the front as opposed to the stern. That there is a steering quadrant. So that's the thing that actually, from the helm, chains went round, and that's what turned the rudder. That's an engine mounting. That's one of the winches, the cargo winches. That's one of the triple. That is the triple expansion steam engine from the wreck, and that's one of the boilers. So hopefully this is going to work. So you're going to have to excuse us because the quality of this won't be brilliant, and it's a bit stilted. But I think Craig or Jacob are going to put a link to YouTube for this. There are two parts to this video. I'm going to show you this first part because it's quite it was too long to put onto one YouTube. So hopefully this will work, but it is a bit stilted. So please bear with me. This day was amazing. The water was so clear. It was incredible. I'm actually filming it. That's my dive buddy, Andy, on that day. The skipper of the ship is a friend of mine, or the dive boat was a friend of mine. He'd phoned me up the day before and said, get your backside down to the coast because the conditions are amazing in Thompson. So I skived off work and went diving for the day and managed to capture this footage. There's one of the boilers there. And this is the engine. Expansion steam engine. The engine's obviously fallen over, it was on the side. See some of the fish life. There's been the engine mountings here. And these holes are part of the crankshafts that drove the prop shaft the propeller. It's all a tangled mess, but lots of it is still recognisable. See the joints of the crankshaft there. This is coming along the port side of the ship, but going towards the back, towards the stern. Those white things on the side of these here, what are called dead man's fingers, like a soft coral. See, this was once the deck of the ship. It's partially buried in the sand. I alluded to this is a T.R. Thompson, not the Red Sea, because we've dived in Red Sea where conditions haven't been as good as this some days as well. So we'll swing along to the stern now. And this is where part of the stern has collapsed. So we'll go the torch. So when I first dived this wreck, there was no collapse. It was upright. It was pretty much intact at the stern. Always nice fish. So coming round now to the stern. If you look out in a minute, you'll see just the seabed is just flat sand and mud. As I said to you, the wrecks are a haven for fish. That's their home. There's nowhere else for them to live. That's why they just congregate on wrecks. This is 34 metres down to the seabed. So people say the English Channel is cold and dark, and it can be, but you get lots of days like this. Now just looking up from the stern, from the seabed, stern. Here is the rudder and the propeller. That's the propeller. That's the rudder. We're coming up the side of the ship now in a minute. And you can see those holes there, it's when the rivets have popped out. The ship was pre-welded. Well, that's the steering quadrant. So the ship rivets will start popping out, which is causing the collapse of the ship. There's always something like posing for the camera. So this, you can just see this top of the panel there. That's the arch. That's the rudder again. Come up over the stern now. See the gun. So there is the gun platform. Yeah, when I first dived that was upright. And that's fallen over. And this here is the gun. And that's the barrel of the gun. There have been shell casings which were found near the wreck, which come. Whether that gun was ever fired in anger, I don't know, but merchantmen did have it in the war, did have a gun at the back. See down the gun there. And they swing along as bulkheads. you see the fish. Sometimes you can't see the wreck because of all the fish. This is the sponges, soft corals. Swing back over what used to be the decks. There's rats. These are big, the striped fish are big. The other thing you get on these wrecks is lots of conger eels, and some of them are enormous. Remains of bulkheads here. Being came back by the sea. There's another dead man's finger. These are cargo winches. I think that was not a spare propeller blade. Then swimming back over. This was probably where the helm was of the ship, midships. As I said, that video, sorry for the quality of it. It's for some reason we checked it the other day and it was very stilted, but those videos are on YouTube, and I think Craig, as I say, or Jacob put links up. And the part 2, which is the going towards the front of the ship, excuse me, you can see it on there, and some of the other wrecks we dived as well, but this is about Thompson. So we set up the T.R. Thompson blog, and this is the address for it there, with all the research, photographs, films, and everything we found out about the shipwreck. And we found a relative, which again I'm going to talk about a bit more in a minute, of a crew member, and we actually brought him down to Sussex to take him out to see the wreck site. And how we did that, we'll see in a minute. This is Norman. It was actually his grandfather's brother's son, who was 16 when the ship went down, and he went down with it. And we brought Alf down and his wife down to the coast, and you'll see a bit of film in a minute, which will describe that better than what I can. And after we'd done all this stuff, we set up the block. We entered the project for the 2008 Dr. Weck Award, where we were pleased to say we were the runners-up. And we were told that if it hadn't been for one particular project, which was a semi-professional project, we would have won that year. Any other year, we would have won it. And there you can see it's myself, Sheila, who's no longer with us, and Chris, the three of the team. We were awarded a certificate, and we also rewarded a decanter with this engraved T.R. Thompson project. And the doctor, it was probably, I was so proud of what we achieved with that. It was amazing. You know, we just a group of guys and girls that just wanted to go out and dive, but actually took on this wreck as a project, and it just opened up a whole new world to us. I was really, really proud of what we achieved. So the project was recognised on various websites, and over 18,000 hits of videos placed on YouTube. BBC Wed set up a web page on their site, which was dedicated to the project. Excuse me. At that time, and we've received lots of recognition from other divers on what we did. We had successful media coverage with the project, exposed potentially to over 5 million plus people. So that included radio, magazine, and you'll see in a minute some TV coverage as well. This was an article I wrote for a dive magazine, which was released in the UK and abroad. Not a journalist, but I was asked to write an article, and I wrote it, and I wrote a couple of other ones for other dive magazines, not as big as this one, but I was really proud of doing that, actually. It was quite scary seeing what you write published, but I was really proud. So what we decided to do, there was a 90th anniversary of the T.R. Thompson was sank. So just out of interest, I phoned the BBC and said, would you be interested in covering us going out to this wreck on its anniversary of its sinking and just covering it? Didn't think they would say yes, but they said, yeah, we'd love to. The lady there, Beverly, she actually learned to dive at the dive centre as well, where I worked at weekends. They said, yeah, we come down. There was a lot of work in a very short space of time to get the BBC to be able to come out on the boat. So there was lots of health and safety stuff. Our skipper, Steve Johnson, had to sort of produce lots of paperwork as well. And also we were reliant on the weather. But fortunately, that day, the weather was good to us. So hopefully this will work. And this is what we did on the anniversary of it diving, of the ship sinking.
The divers are researching the history of the SS T.R. Thompson. They hope their trip today will inspire others to take an interest in the hundreds of wrecks that dot our coastline. They invited our reporter, John Young, to join them. They set off early on their pilgrimage. 6 divers, 1 destination, and the kit ready to record it. But the sea was looking darker than they'd have liked.
Diving's a visual sport, so when you get down, unless you can see anything, it's pretty pointless. So we like to be able to see what we're doing. What do you reckon now? We'd be lucky if we get 1-2 meters.
90 years ago, the SS T.R. Thompson had been a reassuring sight from any distance, carrying iron ore to a country exhausted by nearly 4 years of war. But on Good Friday, 1918, a German captain sent her and 33 men to the seabed off New Haven. It was only last autumn that her secrets were revealed.
That wasn't true. They got that wrong as well. It'd been revealed a lot before that. So we had to correct them on that.
The time had come for a second journey to a monument and a graveyard which does not lie alone in the English Channel.
I often said to friends that, you know, if you were to walk on the Downs and to see things like locomotives from the last century or old planes, it'd be a really fantastic open air museum. And in effect, that's what we've got out here in the sea.
What was it like, Dad?
That's me. You can see my camera there.
Surprisingly good.
That was what it was like on that day. It was pitch black. It was as murky as hell, but it was just great to be able to be on that wreck on its anniversary of its sinking.
Quiet. It's very surreal. You can almost hear, if you really put your mind to it and really relax, you can hear the goings on. Certainly in a lot of wrecks, when you see a boiler, you see the boiler room, you can just imagine what they were doing on that ship at the time.
A terrible time, remembered where it happened nearly a century later. John Young, BBC South East Today, off the Sussex coast. Very sad, but fascinating at the same time.
There are hundreds of wrecks out in the channel. Many haven't even been
I
found.
didn't realise there were quite so many. Now we move on, and this really is.
So once they showed that, they showed it obviously down at BBC South East. They also showed it up BBC North. And we were contacted by the BBC afterwards from up north, so they had identified, or somebody had contacted them, a gentleman called Norman Jack, who I mentioned earlier. His wife had been watching the TV, and they were showing this particular film clip up there because that's where the ship had come from, and she sort of said, "Norman, isn't that where their ancestor was that the ship he went down on?" Because they'd been researching their family tree, and he said, "Yeah, it was." They brought out their paperwork. Anyway, the BBC, they phoned the BBC, and the BBC put him in touch with us, or phoned me up. So what we did is we asked him and his wife to come down and to the coast. So we arranged for that later on in the year, in July that year, and invited Norman and his wife Mary down to the coast, and we took Norman out on the boat to the wreck side, and we were going to lay a reef on the wreck on his behalf, on his family's behalf. And we asked the BBC if they'd come out with us again, and they were delighted to. And I should show you the film, let it speak for itself.
Hit the SS T.R. Thompson, sending 33 merchant seamen to their deaths off the coast of New Haven. Back in April, we told you about the Sussex divers who visited the wreck and hoped that our report would encourage the victims' families to come forward. It did, and John Young travelled out to sea again today to watch one man pay his respects to a long-lost relative. They set off from Brighton at noon, a group of local divers with a new friend in their midst who had much on his mind.
When this stops, you know, down there is what was back of the family, and a very, very young boy. It's going to be very emotional. Yeah, it will be.
The SS T.R. Thompson was built in the George Short shipyard on Wearside in the last years of Queen Victoria. In the last months of the First World War, she was torpedoed and 33 men drowned. And amongst them, Leslie Francis Jack, an apprentice merchant seaman, a man from Sunderland who died here off the Sussex coast at the age of 16. His family have no photos of him, but they do have memories, and it's those memories that the divers here in Sussex want to share. They filmed the wreck many times, but today would be different. Their guest, from Sunderland himself, a relative of Leslie Francis Jack, with a duty to perform.
I thought, think of my own father, and he would have loved that as a recognition, the funeral, memorial, whichever way you put it. Making somebody with a personal connection with that ship has made it more important to us and more special. And it was quite emotional to actually be on the wreck as well, with knowing Mr. Jack was up here. We all contributed something in life. They contributed.
They're the railings which I pointed out earlier on,
That's
which we
a bit
put the,
special. That's a bit extra.
put the reef on.
John Young, BBC South East Today, New Haven.
Very moving story, very moving ending.
Now, if you think it's what...
So that was probably, in my diving career, probably one of the most emotional and probably one of the best experiences I've personally had. And I know for my colleagues that I was diving with, particularly on that day, they felt the same. To actually join all the dots together, have somebody with a connection to the wreck, be able to bring him and his wife down to the coast, take him out and lay a reef in memory of Leslie, his ancestor on that wreck, was something else. It made everything worthwhile. The project came together. It was amazing. And it just actually, that was more important than the project itself, just to bring that family down. And we were all, I think we were all in tears that day. It was amazing. And that evening we took Leslie and his wife out, Norman and his wife out for a dinner as a group. We presented him with a photograph of the wreck, And I know we don't take things from the wreck, but I did bring up a little rivet, and we had that mounted on wood, and gave that to him as a memento. And because of that, he went and then back up to Sunderland, and he got involved with the Ship Heritage Centre up there. We did quite a few radio interviews, and it sort of changed his life as well. Unfortunately, Mary died about a year later. Norman has also passed on, I'm afraid to say, but I was really, really, really proud of what we achieved with that project, and that was the culmination of that project. Being able to do that for that particular gentleman and his family was great. So the difficulties we faced when we did this project was obviously the weather. We live on an island, the sea's rough, the conditions can be appalling, but the gods smiled on us for both the dives we did with the BBC. We were really, really lucky. The depth, the Thompson isn't particularly deep. I mean, I'm trained to dive a lot deeper, but you are limited in the time you have at that depth if you do what's called no decompression diving. So that means basically you can dive down and come more or less straight back up without having to do stops, although we always do a 6 meter stop anyway for 3 minutes. But that does have a bearing on what you can do and how long you can stay down there for. So it takes multiple dives to do this particular project. The cost of diving and the chartering, obviously equipment's quite expensive, but once you've got it and you maintain it, that's fine. But chartering boats, hard boats, was and still is expensive. As I said, sea conditions, tides, where we get some of the biggest tides in the world here, especially in the Channel, and they can be quite ferocious. And also underwater visibility. So when you saw in that first film, the day we went out to do the anniversary dive, the conditions underwater weren't particularly good. They were dark and murky, but we're quite used to that. But to me, to be able to see and see what you're diving and in clear water, it makes it far more enjoyable. And that's it. I'm sorry for the slight hiccups earlier on. With the as I said, I'm a bit rusty at this, and it's the first time I've ever done a presentation online. But thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. It's brought back a lot of memories for me, and it's something I'm still passionate about. It's something I still want to be involved in. Life and time and work gets in the way at the moment, but I will still be involved and I will still dive. So thank you, and I'll pass back over so if there's any questions. Okay, so close that down. Okay. Can everybody hear me? Because everybody's on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Just waiting for Jacob to unmute me there. Tad, thank you so much. What an absolutely incredible story, and what an amazing outcome. Absolutely just heartwarming, really beautiful, and great that you were able to make those connections. Find that gentleman and lay that wreath. It's a really, really beautiful story, and an amazing wreck.
Yeah,
So
sorry, we were amateurs. We weren't archaeologists, but it made us. We just became passionate about it. That's what we live for. I'm so proud of what we actually did.
So if anyone has any questions, pop them in the chat. I just wanted to ask what happens to the SS T.R. Thompson now? Is it still being dived on? Is it danger?
Last time I dived it, Craig, as I said earlier on, it was a few years ago now. It was collapsing even more. I mean, it's cast iron. It's a cast iron ship, so it's deteriorating quite badly. Frighteningly enough, last time I dived, it was a huge net above the wreck. So bad visibility, that can be quite dangerous. I don't know if it's been removed. There is a team called Ghost Divers UK. I think they go out and volunteers go out and removing ghost nets. They call them ghost nets or ghost fishing on the wreck. So they're going, but there was a big net above the wreck last time I dived it, and you have to be a little bit careful, especially in no visibility. But yes, it's still being dived, but it is deteriorating badly.
shame. Blair has asked, can you use lights underwater? Which
Oh
I
yeah,
presume
yeah. There's underwater torches. Again, they've
help with visibility.
sorry.
Do they help with the visibility?
The trouble is, you get lots of matter in the water, so sometimes the light can bounce back off that matter. It's a bit like having a torch in snow. Okay, but yeah, you do obviously need lights. But the day when I showed the shipwreck when we dived it that day, it was crystal clear. Well, clear and light, you know, so we didn't need torches at all, except you was looking inside. But no, it's often, especially late summer, autumn, that's probably the best time of year for diving in this country, because the water's at its warmest and it's also its clearest.
Lots of people saying thank you, and for a fascinating and interesting talk. Have you got plans to dive on any future wrecks?
I need to get myself back into shape. Okay, I'm not. I'm a lot older than I was back then, and I will probably not be doing the deep stuff I used to do. The Thompson's within my limit, but I used to do a lot deeper because I was technically trained, which means I could go a lot deeper and do deeper wrecks. And the deepest one I've done in the channel, and we did it. We went down as solo divers as well, so you're on your own. It was just over 50 meters to the bottom, which doesn't sound deep, but it is diving. But that was great. It was in the shipping lane, so it was mid channel, and it was beautiful. But you're on your own. But the way I was trained to dive you have what they call redundancies. You have spare air, you have double everything. So you have spare buoyancy, air, spare lines, spare reels for buoys to come up. So you make sure you're safe. You've got to be able to look after yourself.
We've had a question. Were you able to go inside the Thompson? Can you get inside the wreck?
No, because you can't get inside the Thompson. It's collapsed quite badly. There's no way to actually get in. To saying that, I have been inside wrecks. I talked about the Oceana. You can get in parts of that. The wreck I talked about in Egypt, the Fissigorm, you can actually get quite inside that. You have to be really careful and you have to be trained, and you just don't go in willy-nilly. You know, inside a wreck, especially an old wreck, can be very, very dangerous and they can collapse. And you have to have proper training to be able to safely penetrate any wreck. But at Thompson, you can't get inside. No.
So I think this is a similar question on the similar lines from Marilyn. It says, is there a huge chance of snagging whilst diving close to the wreck?
Yeah, there is. You can, especially if you not so much on the outside, but if you go inside a wreck, you can get snagged. You can also kick up the silt, lose your way out. So you know when you're trained to dive, penetrate a wreck, you put a reel down, so you've got a line to come out, a bit like diving, cave diving. But yeah, you can get snagged, and I've seen it happen. People get something caught up, but the thing is, in that situation, you don't panic. You just stop, breathe, find out where you're snagged and disconnect. Or if you're diving with your buddy, they can disconnect you. It's not often, but it can happen, and it has happened. And I've been caught as well. So yeah, it's just to stop, you know, and think, oh well, when am I caught? And look, and all else fails, you just unclip your gear, you swing it off, keep your regulator in, and sort out your snagging.
So John Dixon said, not so much a question, but I dived on the Thompson back in August 1992. Not bad visibility, 3 to 4 meters, and wreck a bit better condition then.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Dixon.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was probably diving it around back then as well, and it was better condition. As I said, the last few years, well, the last time I dived it, it was quite sad to see how badly collapsing it is. I mean, it's like the Titanic. The Titanic's going to disappear eventually. It's being eaten away, you know, and it will collapse. It'll just be a pile of metal on the seabed.
Abby's asked, are there any other wrecks nearby?
Yeah, hundreds of wrecks off the Sussex coast. Around near Thompson, I can't pinpoint exactly, but there are wrecks close by. You know, we have marks for wrecks. Nowadays, modern GPS and fish finders make it easier to sort of know where you're going on the wrecks and find wrecks out in the sea. So, and there are people have marked them. They've got coordinates for those wrecks, but there are wrecks nearby. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, Blair has asked, can you communicate with your dive buddies?
Well, we have a sign language, so okay, okay, up, down, shark. Okay, I'm not happy about this. I'm out of air. So there is a sign language you learn when you dive. There is equipment now that enables you to talk underwater with built-in microphones and things. Some of the newer technology like rebreathers, to a degree, you can roughly speak through. I have never used a rebreather, and it's a whole new technology. Allows you to stay underwater longer and dive in different conditions. But yeah, you can talk underwater with the right equipment.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I think we are going to wrap it up. So thank you, Tad, so much for sharing that incredible story with us. And thank you, everybody, for attending. As I said before, if you're not a member, do think about joining us. It's probably less than half a pint of lager even, and you get lots of great benefits for joining the society. So please do think about it. We have lots more coming up. I hope you've all been following Andy and I as we explore Kent's fascinating historical locations over the spooky season, hunting for ghosts and the like, but putting out some nice historical assets to the county as well. Keep an eye out for our upcoming talks. So on Thursday, the 14th of November, we have, to coincide with the release of Gladiator 2, Dr. Simon Elliott will be telling us all things Septimius Severus. On Thursday, the 5th of December, we have Randall Manor Revealed, Community Archaeology Excavations in Sean Woods Country Park from Andrew Mayfield. On Thursday, the 23rd of January, 2025, we have Dr. Reb Ellis Hacken, who will be talking to us about animals and humans in the late Iron Age art of England and Wales with a special reference to Kent. Thursday, the 21st of February, David Brownrigg will bring us a presentation on technical aids in archaeology with a special focus on aerial and satellite imaging. Thursday, the 20th of March, Janice Thornton will be talking about Sheppey munitionesses, women in Sheerness Dockyard in World War One. And on Thursday, the 17th of April, Dr. Martin Watts will deliver his talk on Richborough, the secret port. So check out the website for more details on the talks and a wide range of other Kent-based events, as well as how to become a member. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful night. Lots of thanks coming in for you, Tad, for the brilliant talk. And I will see you all very soon. Thanks again, Tad. Good night, everyone.
Bye.